and salutations, everybody. Welcome to our inaugural Collider Rebels recap and review show here on Collider Video. My name is John Campea, and I am joined by...
I am Kristian Harloff, and I am super excited to be talking about Rebels. We've been raving about this show. The season 2, it's back. It's time to talk Rebels.
Can you imagine? I can't imagine why you and I would be doing a Star Wars thing. I mean, it was
couldn't find anyone else.
It was a bit of a stretch talking about like for those of you now, you're going to notice that it's just Kristian and I here tonight. We literally just made the decision to do
we're sitting around talking
earlier today that we were going to, you know what, let's just do it. Let's do a recap show of Rebels this season. There's going to be 22 episodes. And so we haven't got other castmates yet, but you will see other people joining us for the next couple episodes. So forgive us as we just meander through this first one here to get. So we're going to talk about a couple things tonight. We're definitely going to talk about the episode Lost Commanders, which is officially season 2, episode 1. But we're also going to talk about the, what do they call it?
Siege of Lothal. It's a movie. It's a TV event. It's a Rebels movie.
It's really episode 1. But the way they're calling it is that was the TV movie. This is officially episode 1. So we're going to talk about both those things. We're going to talk about things we love about it. We're going to talk about some of the things we're maybe a little bit concerned about. And then we're going to take some of your Twitter questions. How do you communicate with us via Twitter? Simple. Send out a tweet and just make sure you include the hashtag Collider Rebels. That will get questions to us. We're going to address a couple of them tonight. So, Kristian, without further ado, let's just dive right into this.
Let's do it.
We're going to kind of combine all this. We're going to combine the movie, The Siege of Lothal, with the episode tonight, The Lost Commanders.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you're excited about with this first hour of Rebels that we're getting this
Well,
season?
listen, let's start with Siege of Lothal here, because I think that for people, what's great about Siege of Lothal is even people who didn't watch season 1, that if you're a Star Wars fan and you stumble upon Siege of Lothal or someone recommends Siege of Lothal to you, you will instantly be hooked, because that's Vader in his prime. There's everything that you want from him, but it's not just, oh, well, we have Vader, so we're going to abuse the fact that we do. No, they use him the right way. They use him. He's not just raw power.
Yeah.
There's a method to his madness. Everything he's doing, the way he sets up the rebels to fail, and then just uses fear, and the way that they're terrified of him, because remember, during season 1, we just went through the Inquisitor, who was pretty scary.
Who was pretty terrifying.
Looks like the glass Joe compared to Vader, though.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, Vader's Tyson.
Glass Joe.
That's
a great reference.
He is. I mean,
bonus for those of you who knows what he's talking about.
He is, but I mean, as far as you got Tyson in '86 here in Vader. And they set it up, and then are we spoiling stuff here too for people? This is for people who have seen.
Well, this
the
is a
shows.
recap show. We're assuming that you're
watched
the
right.
show.
Yeah. So at the end of Siege of Lothal, it has that conversation. Vader has a conversation with the Emperor,
who sounded amazing.
By the way, Sam Witwer just crushing it as the Emperor, and setting up that. We know that that Anakin's apprentice is alive, and she's going to lead to lost Jedi and to the children of the Force, and they're setting up this angle that's been set up in the Clone Wars, that's been set up in comic books, and now set up again in Rebels, and now we lead into season 2. I thought the movie was a great setup into what we're going to get, because it even hints that Vader's going to step back a little bit and let the Inquisitors now do their job.
Yeah.
These 2 new Inquisitors.
They want to make sure they don't overexpose us to Vader, which I think is a really smart move. You know, in a lot of the video games, and even in some of the various cartoon incarnations, whenever Vader has been used, it's always felt like, oh, look, they're using a Vader, which is cool. That's a Vader. In the video games, whatever. It's never been Vader. This is not a Vader. This is Vader.
You have James Earl Jones.
You've got actual James Earl Mother effing Jones doing the actual voice of Vader. But it's not even just that they had the right voice. Everything that he said, every move that he made, the way everything was so calculated, the plan.
The Vader turn.
Everything was just, it was Vader. This is the first time we've seen Vader since Return of the Jedi. Yeah. And it was so cool to see. And I remember the first time, going back almost a year, that we saw that first trailer for season 2, Siege of Lothal, and they gave us a glimpse of Vader. And I remember saying to you this one time when we saw that there was going to be a fight between Ezra and Kanan and Vader, I remember saying to you, this better be one hell of a one-sided fight. This better be almost laughable. It has to be so one-sided. And then we come to that fight, And it is so perfectly orchestrated. Like half the time Vader's fighting with one hand. You and I were commenting to each other. There were about 6 moments in that fight that he easily could have snuffed them both out. And then you're realizing, as you're watching the first time, you're thinking, oh, come on, he could have killed him right there. But then you realize, no, Vader's thinking 5 steps ahead. He doesn't want to kill them yet. He's got a trap laid for them that he is playing out to perfection. I loved it. And it just made me hook, line, and sinker right in. It was the best. We're talking about the Siege of Lothal here. To me, it was the best episode of Rebels we've ever had.
And I think that you have to give the credit to Dave Filoni and Simon Kinberg here, because even when I was able to, I went to, if you're a fan of Jedi Council, I showed when actually you can find the interview with Dave Filoni.
Filoni's online right now,
and I spoke to Dave Filoni during the press conference.
For those of you who don't know who Dave Filoni is,
Dave Filoni is the executive producer of Rebels.
Basically the showrunner.
Yes, he's the director. He's basically George Lucas of Rebels.
Yes.
He really is, and he deserves that title, because when speaking with him about the fight you were just talking about with Vader, and I was saying, I echoed your sentiments there. What you were saying in regards to how it should have been one-sided fight. He's like, oh yeah, they didn't stand a chance. Like he knew it. He knew it going into it. You could see them as they're going in that right immediately. He knows Star Wars. He knows how Vader's going to be and how it's going to play out. And that's how we get into this episode of The Lost Commanders here. This episode, to me, and what I also like, what Dave Filoni has done here and his team has, for a lot of people who didn't watch the Clone Wars, or maybe necessarily weren't as much of a fan as, say, I was.
Yeah, that would be me.
But what he has done, and I think that you would agree with this too, is even though you disliked Asoka very much in the Clone Wars, you have now become a fan of her the way that she's been developed in Rebels. He has married the two worlds here of Clone Wars and Rebels and Star Wars in general, and he will continue to do that. And I think that The Lost Commanders is a testament to that. For what he's, because this is all about Rex. It really is. This episode. This episode that we're talking about here.
The official episode 1 is
episode 1. So the fact that we start out with Asoka, that she knows that she has to, what her mission is going to be is this Sith Lord.
She needs
the relationship with Vader. And Dave Filoni also has said, we're going to get that. Whether I think the end of the season, this season, is going to be that matchup. Now, whether or not she makes it out, we'll figure that out. I don't think she is either. But that's her through line there. You're going to get the development there. But Kanan's mission and the crew's mission that we've been following since season 1, their mission's different. And she has said, we've got someone who can help the rebellion. Go find him. But Kanan, trust him. And I love that, because to me, that does what a lot of people have been asking in the Star Wars world, is how they're going to introduce this new canon and these new things that the new comic books and video games and books, how they're going to do that, but still do it to where you're not going to lose casual viewers who don't know about it. Because I think anyone could have watched this episode and Kanan could have had this thing that he didn't trust the clones, and you got it, even if you didn't read the comic books.
Yeah, even if you didn't watch the Clone Wars, even if you didn't, you could have watched, like, right from you didn't even have to watch season 1 to know exactly what was going on fairly quickly. Obviously, it helps if you did, because you get all the depth, but it is really a beautiful thing they're doing with this show that very much feels like the continuation. They're building the story, yet somebody brand new could have come in right now, just watch that, and not felt behind.
That is very hard to do.
Extremely difficult to do.
It is very hard to do, and the fact that they can do that, and I think that that's also, you have to give credit to Freddie Prinze Jr. for the way that he portrays Kanan and the emotions. Like, you know, and the animators, the way that you could watch this for the very first time and understand everything going on. But for me, because I'm such a Star Wars addict, the fact that I have read Greg Weisman's comic book of Kanan, I knew exactly what he was talking about when he said that he watched his master get murdered by the clones and why he didn't trust them. I have been there. I saw the scene. I watched it happen. And to me, that's a little extra bonus for reading all this stuff. But it was developed so well. And the fact that when you see Rex, for the fans of the Clone Wars, they're losing their minds going, oh, Rex is back. And they know the kind of leader he was. And then for the new people watching and going, oh, well, who's this guy? Who's this Santa Claus looking dude that's showing up, and his 2 wacky friends? And I loved how they were able to not only make all 3 of these clones different personalities, which I thought they did very well. I also loved the little shot they took at the stormtroopers. You know, just like, oh, they found the Empire has deemed the clone troopers irrelevant. You know, and they continue to take shots at the stormtroopers, and I love that relationship with the clones.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I really loved about this episode too is the fact that there is so much. alluding to the past and stuff like that. So the fans of the series, we've been talking for a few minutes now about how you don't have to have been a fan of the series or any of the previous stuff to get on board with this. But at the same time, it really does service those of us who are fans of the series and know the history. As a matter of fact, we were watching the episode, and if anybody else was in the room with us, they'd be like throwing things at us because we're such nerds. But like little things like, that little monitor screen in the back corner that nobody else is looking at, we see that there's an homage to the original graphics in the original movie because they use the classic grid. And like
it's the attention to detail.
Oh, such faithful detail that they put in all this stuff. Like in that conversation, I remember saying to you, when Asoka says to him, when you find him, trust him. Okay, no problem. No. Trust him. And I remember I turned to Kristian and I go, couldn't she just take 5 seconds to say, hey, just so you know, heads up, he is a clone, but don't worry, he's one of the good guys. And Kristian pointed out, yeah, but that's the Jedi, man. That's the frickin' Jedi.
That's what they do. That's what Obi-Wan does too. They don't tell you straight up. You got to figure it out for yourself. And I thought Asoka did that so well to where, because, and I really say that because Kanan has to work this issue out. Like this is why Kanan's one of my favorite characters, because he is flawed. He's flawed, but he's also not one of those. He's stubborn, but yet he still knows. He still follows the right way. He is the definition of a Jedi. He does follow the light side. Now, Ezra, on the other hand, I think that this kid, Dennis and I were talking about this earlier too. Even in that trailer they showed at Comic-Con, Ezra's going down the dark side, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but eventually it happened. But Kanan does the things that a real Jedi does. He just doesn't trust in himself. He doesn't think he's a real Jedi yet.
Right, which is understandable why he does. All right, well let's talk about some of the things that didn't work, because it's not all going rah. One of the things for me that I thought was not handled great. Before I get to that, also, how great was the probe droid?
I love that. I love probe. When it showed up, I was like, I love the probe droids. Here the system, whatever he says. But it's like that. It's that sound detail. It's the detail in the animation, and what I love, they're so cold and scary. Those things, like it's working, it's doing its work, and then Sabine walks in on it. It doesn't stop and wait. It just turns and starts shooting.
Yeah,
it's so methodical. I loved those probe droids, and then the fact that Rex just sits back, makes it right, because was it Wolf or Gregor? I think
it was Wolf.
Wolf was the one who turned. Wolf calls the Empire on Kanan and the crew, but Rex makes it right and takes that shot. And I also like the fact that the clones he wasn't doing it. Wolf wasn't doing it because he was trying to prove a point, or he's just a typical bad guy like a mole. He's just trying to save his boys.
Yeah, one of the things too about the probe droid, I loved it right from the beginning when you see Kanan sitting at the control thing, then looking down, but off in the distance, the focal point of the camera changes, and now you're looking off in the distance, and it's that classic Empire Strikes Back of the asteroid hit, but it's actually the probe droid coming down, hitting. It felt so classic before, and so you knew what was going to happen when you saw that. I thought that was great. One of the things, and probably the only thing about this episode that I thought could have been handled a lot better, and I understand it's animated, it's getting near the end of the episode, they had to pick things up, but upon discovering the betrayal of Wolf, that he had basically turned these guys over to the Empire. He had contacted the Empire, called them in, all that kind of stuff behind his brothers' backs, and basically betrayed everybody. All it took was going, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. And all is forgiven. There's no problem and no issue. Just sweep that under the rug. I thought maybe that could have been handled a little bit differently.
I could say that that's probably accurate. Because I actually had the similar thought when I saw that, but I've cheated a little bit because I've seen episode 2. So I kind of
which I have not yet.
Yeah, I know a little bit further kind of what happened. So to me, it didn't bother me as much, but I understand that for sure. I don't know. There's really not a lot that, I mean, I could do the Star Wars nitpicky stuff as a spoiled fanboy and say, I wish I would have seen the Inquisitors, the new Inquisitors, or I wish I would have seen Vader.
But we know they're coming.
We know they're coming. So I thought it was a really great setup to season 2. I really did. I think that I would have liked to see a little bit more of, and I know it's coming down the road too, but maybe just a little bit more explanation as far as how that affected Asoka with this main battle that just happened in this event that she just had. She just kind of shook it off a little bit. I know that we're gonna get more of it. It's gonna be developed, but I'm nitpicking because we're 22 minutes into the first season.
Yeah,
we really are.
I look, we watched earlier today because we knew we were going to do this, so we watched Siege of Lothal again today, and we brought this up amongst ourselves, and I'd still be curious to know what you guys think. One of the debates that's been going on since Siege of Lothal aired a couple of months ago was, did Asoka realize that not just that's a Sith, but that is Anakin Skywalker, that Vader is Anakin? At the time, I really believe she knew, even though she told her crewmates or the people she was with now, no, I don't know who it was. I think she did. When she turned and says, I need answers. Like, to me, that just reinforced my belief that she knows it's Anakin. So I'm very confident that she knows it's Anakin, but you don't necessarily think so.
No, I do. But the thing is, Ashley Eckstein, who voices Ahsoka, doesn't, because Dave Filoni, this is another reason why I love this guy, because he's like a Sith Lord, and he doesn't. He loves playing with, and he said this in the press conference. Sometimes he tells Ashley Eckstein that she's going to die this season. Sometimes he tells her she's going to live. Sometimes he tells her that she does know. Sometimes he says she doesn't. So she has to think for herself until she really knows. And I asked her. I said, and again, this interview is available on this channel. I had said to her, do you think that she knows? And he's like, she doesn't think, because she doesn't think Ahsoka would want to believe it. Someone who she loved so much that she was endeared. Because you remember in that relationship, in those 6 seasons of Anakin and Ahsoka, they were thick as thieves, those two. And there was a great relationship that developed. And the way that, I mean, I hated her in that first movie, and I loved her by the last episode, and I hoped that she would come back, and she did. And so she does not want that to happen to the brother father figure that she had. So I do think that she does know, though, and I think she has to find it within herself to get to that final battle. And I just don't. But I think what they did set up, though, in the trailer for the New York Comic Con when they debuted this trailer for season 2, she has, and this goes back to what you were saying, when you hope Vader fought those two, that it wasn't much of a fight, and it wasn't. I'm hoping the same thing when Ahsoka fights the 2 Inquisitors. I don't care how the Inquisitors have been trained, and they seem to be children of the Force. They're fighting a seasoned Jedi.
You're fighting a real Jedi, You're not fighting Kanan, whose Jedi training ended when he was 7 or something like that.
A little older, but still
8, 9, whatever. You ain't fighting that. You are fighting a war-hardened, seasoned Jedi Knight, and you're an Inquisitor. That's nice,
right?
Like,
she
better kick their asses pretty good.
The reason why I think that she will. And not only because she's fighting 2 of them, so it might be a little bit of a fight, but I still think she's going to wind up knocking them around, is because it's like, almost like boxing. You want her, like, she's the #1 contender. You want her to be able to fight off the other contenders. By the time she gets to the champ, you think she has a shot.
It's like a video game. She's building up to the big boss at the end, which is Vader.
Because we don't want to go into that Vader fight thinking he's going to smack her around.
And we have no doubt, right? I think it's safe to say, at least between you and I, we have zero doubt that near the end of this season, or at the end of it, this season's going to culminate in the 2 of them facing off against each other.
Filoni's been pretty much guaranteeing.
And I don't think it's going to end well for Ahsoka Tano.
It's funny.
Heroically, but not well.
That's the question I would pose to the viewers here, is like, who thinks Ahsoka's going to live at the end of this, and who thinks she's going to die? Because it seems to be split. Like, my brother has a bet with me. He does not think she's going out. I think she's going to lose, and it's almost going to be like a Luke situation in Empire Strikes Back, maybe. But how long do you prolong that?
I really hope, because I have never liked the Ahsoka character, ever. Actually, incredibly turned off by her until she came into Rebels.
Right.
And it's like, this is a new character to me. This is a different character to me. And I want to see her go out heroically against Vader, and losing like Obi-Wan lost to Vader. Like, Obi-Wan was going to lose that fight, but he made sure that in dying, he saved the rest. And I think that's what they're going to set her up for, a big heroic ending against Vader. I think it's going to be amazing. Now, we're running short on time. So we said we were going to take some of your guys' questions on Twitter. Once again, tweet out anytime you want. We're always going to be monitoring this. Just send out your tweet and make sure you include the hashtag Collider Rebels. So let's get to a couple of questions now. And the first question we got lined up comes from Brian Fernandez, who writes, will there be moments during this season that we can see some characters from The Force Awakens or Rogue One? I think Rogue One is a definite possibility. We have some theories about maybe Sabine and Rogue One, but I don't think The Force Awakens is quite realistic because you got to remember the time difference. There's a huge time span between Rebels and The Force Awakens. So I think it's I think very, very few people in Rebels survive at all. But there's a big, big time gap there. But Rogue One is more of a possibility. I give it a 50-50 chance for Rogue One. What about you?
Rogue One, I'd probably say 75. But as far as Force Awakens, I'm going to go 10 to 15 because people,
I'd be there too.
A lot of people have been asking, like, will Ezra turn out to be Snoke? Some people are asking if he's Kylo Ren, but that doesn't match up in age. Some people are asking if Kanan could be Max von Sydow. That goes in age. And it's certainly possible. I just don't think probable. But Rogue One, it matches up in the timeline. It has to match up in the timeline. By the time we get to season 3 of Rebels,
it's going to
line up into Rogue One. I think it's a brilliant marketing tool to match it up. I've asked those questions. Kiri Hart was asked that question at Rebels, and they're very aware that they link up. So I think Rogue One's a possibility.
All right, let's go to the next question now. And the next one comes to us from Sam Randoman, who writes, do you think these characters will die or be integrated in the live-action films? Yeah, I mean, to kind of feeds off the last question, I think most of them are going to die. I really hope, though at some point, speaking of Syndulla, I hope we see Cham at some point. For those of you who don't know, in the novel, which is part of canon, Lords of the Sith, we are introduced to Hera's father.
Well, he's actually in Clone Wars.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right. That's right.
Wars, yeah.
And we are introduced primarily in the timeline to Hera's father. I really hope at some point we see him. Now, as far as everybody else goes, it's always important to remember. First of all, Yoda is sensitive and can sense all Jedi in the galaxy. Because remember in season 1 of Rebels, he knows Kanan's there and he knows Ezra's there and he can commune with them and communicate with them. And in Return of the Jedi, Yoda says, when gone am I, talking to Luke, the last of the Jedi will you be. So that means by the time we get to episode 4, Kanan is either turned or ain't around, and Ezra is either turned or ain't around. Asoka is not around. She ain't turning. So I think she's not around.
Yeah.
So I think we have very bad things coming. I honestly don't. You have a theory about Sabine, and I give that a 10% chance, but I really don't see any of these other characters transferring to live action. What do you think?
I think Sabine has a chance to survive because I think that she's Mandalorian, and I actually wouldn't be surprised if she leaves the group. Mandalorians are a different bunch, man, and they are a war-ridden bunch. So I want to see what happens with her, and I think that it's a very slim possibility, but a possibility that she is actually Felicity Jones in Rogue One. It'd be interesting to see if that's the case. Hera may or may not make it out. Probably not. I could see it being tragic. And if you just said something interesting that Kanan may go to the dark side. If he does, it's because he witnesses Hera's death. I think that's the one thing.
Oh, wouldn't that be a hook?
I think that's the one thing that
would be
get
a
him.
Great hook.
I think that's the one thing to get him. So we'll see. Zeb's
done.
He's made for tragic loss. I
love Zeb.
I love
him,
him,
great.
He's made for tragic loss. And I think Ezra's going to the dark side and will probably get ended one way or another. But it has to end in tragedy one way or another because there's only so many seasons you can do a Rebels. There's only so many seasons. I think 4, maybe 5 tops. I don't want to see it go past that.
Yeah, and regardless of how far you go, it culminates in episode 4. And we know where the universe is at in episode 4. The Empire in supreme control, other than this little ragtag rebel problem at the time. So it's going to be nasty. All right, last question of the day, and we'll wrap it up with this. This one comes to us from Brooks Langford, who writes, do you think Darth Maul will ever make an appearance? I feel like it is more likely here than in the movies. I'm going to agree with you, and I do believe it is much more likely if we're going to see a return of Darth Maul. I think it is significantly more likely that we would see him pop up in Rebels. However, I still don't think we're going to see him pop up in Rebels. And I hope they don't. While Darth Maul is one of the very, very few things that I actually appreciate about the prequel films, the nice thing about Rebels to me is that they're introducing us to so much new. They're dabbing us here and there with the old. They've just brought in Commander Rex. We have Asoka, where obviously we get quick cameos of Lando and whatever, but I don't want to see them go too much old. Keep moving forward. Keep doing those things. I don't think we need Darth Maul. I don't think it benefits the character of Darth Maul, and I don't think it benefits the story. So while I agree it's much more likely that it would be here rather than a live action thing, I still don't think they will. And personally, myself, I hope they don't. But what do you think?
I don't think he belongs here, and I actually disagree with you guys where this is where they would bring him in. I actually think if he pops up, he's going to pop up in a few places. I think he'll pop up in a comic. I think he'll pop
Comics possible
because now they have Obi-Wan and Anakin doing their own thing. But even though it takes place before Maul comes back, but I think that Obi-Wan and Darth Maul have to have their final confrontation. Now, whether or not this is going to be in a novel or if Obi-Wan ever gets a spin-off, that's where I disagree. Is where I think if Obi-Wan gets a spin-off anthology film, that's where you're going to get Maul back. I think
it's not a bad theory.
That's your guy. That's his arch nemesis. Like they've gone at it so many times in the Clone Wars series. They've had great battles. That's where it needs to happen. You're right. He doesn't fit in. You don't need him in there because then you've got Vader. You've got Vader. You have the Inquisitors.
You bring
Vader, him in there because then it turns into Darth Maul trying to get revenge on Vader, and it's a mess. Like I think at this point in history, Maul's dead already, and I think Obi-Wan's killed him.
All right, folks. Well, listen, that'll do it for this in our preliminary episode, our inaugural episode of Collider's Rebels Recap and Review Show. We will be back here every week talking about every new episode of Rebels. Make sure you tune in and check us out. And also, if you happen to like Star Wars, you may want to see another little show that Kristian Harloff and myself do called Jedi Council, which is coming up tomorrow. As a matter of fact, the newest episode's coming up tomorrow. So, hey, listen, if you like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., if you like Flash, if you like Arrow, check out all the recap shows that we do here on Collider Video. If you're a fan of movies, check out Monday through Friday. We've got Collider Movie Talk. We've got Heroes. We've got Mailbag. So much stuff going on here. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. I want to thank, of course, Mr. Kristian Harloff. Kristian, where can people find you?
Well, look, you guys obviously know I live and die Star Wars, so if you want to talk about it, please tweet me out some questions at Kristian Harloff, and check out my pictures that I post on Star Wars all the time at Kristian Harloff on Instagram. And like John mentioned, Collider Jedi Council, it's every Thursday. We talk all the latest Star Wars news in the movies, in the canon, the comic books, and I know that trailer's coming soon, so when that trailer comes, we'll be talking about it. Check it out every Thursday.
We may know when the trailer's coming. I'm not saying anything anyway. And you guys can, of course, follow me on Facebook and on Twitter, simply at John Campea. Make sure you catch us on Jedi Council tomorrow, Movie Talk, Monday through Friday, all that kind of good stuff. So that'll do for us, guys. Special thanks to Jonathan and Dennis behind the desk, and thank you for joining us. Keep tweeting your stuff in, and we will see you again next week for the next episode of Collider Rebels Recap. Talk to you next time.